dual episode with me and special guest Anita Myers, and we're talking all about gardening, her journey of gardening. How do all the seasons in the Chicagoland area work? Is there a fall season for gardening? And so much more today on Cultivating Guts. Hello, it's Tiffany, and welcome back to Cultivating Guts, a podcast where we discuss gardening, homesteading, gut health, and following our intuition. Super excited to be back with you guys. I've had a lot of fun moments in the garden this summer. A lot of interactions with a lot of great women around their gardens. And we're going to be discussing some really important topics today about gardening and the seasons that we have here in Chicagoland. Today, we're also video recording. So if you want to see us in video, you can check us out on Spotify or YouTube. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/Tiffany Hinton, and you can tune in there. If you're on YouTube or Spotify, hello, you'll get to see me and Anita both. And if you want to see some amazing pictures of Anita's gardens, her flowers, and her space, go over to Instagram on our Instagram, Cultivating Guts, and look for this podcast episode. And then it's a carousel, and you'll see images of what she's created. It's super beautiful. So as we're talking today on the podcast, if you want to see any of it in an image for your own inspiration or your curiosity, you can check it out on Instagram. It will be at Cultivating Guts. And for those of you that are listening, I would love for you to subscribe, rate, and review the Cultivating Guts podcast. Send us a screenshot of your review to Tiffany@cultivatingguts.com. I will send you a free garden planner course. We have a free digital course that we would love to share with you. We also have a free brand new ebook on biodynamic gardening that you can download for absolutely free on our website, www.cultivatingguts.com. And feel free to share any screenshots as you're listening to the podcast on Instagram and tag me at I am Tiffany Hinton. Love reposting and sharing in my stories almost every day. Before we head into the show, I will tell you we've got a quick word from a brand new sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Cultivating Guts. We have our brand new fall bundle available for Little Witches Moon Gardening Club. It is our club for children ages 6 to 14 to introduce them to biodynamic gardening, moon cycles, and living in tune with Mother Nature. It is a way for us to give our children the space to explore, the space to be creative, the space to learn at their own pace, to be able to support Mother Earth as they grow older and create sustainability for our world. Our fall bundle includes 5 classes. You get your original 4, which is September, October, November, December, and a bonus of January if you sign up for the full fall bundle. January is absolutely free. And so the bundle is $120, and you can purchase that at our website, www.cultivatingguts.com. And if you sign up now for the fall bundle, again, January is included absolutely free. If you want to enroll for an individual class, if you're not sure if it's for you, feel free to do that. Individual classes are $50 a class and include all of your supplies, your field guides, your journals, they have a field bag, backpack for their supplies, and a witch hat, because what is Little Witches Moon Garden Club without their own witch hat? We are raising some green witches and some children that will have herbalism and the power of plants as part of their upbringing, and just learn to love Mother Earth as much as I do. So if you're interested in learning more or signing your child up for the fall Little Witches Moon Garden Club, please visit www.cultivatingguts.com, and up in the menu section, you'll see Little Witches Moon Garden Club. Space is limited to the first 15 kids, and we meet on once a month on a weekend for 2.5 hours. All right, welcome back to Cultivating Guts. Super excited. We have Anita Myers with us, and we're talking about gardening. And as many of you know, Anita was somebody, if you've been on one of our past podcasts in season 1, or you've followed me for a little while, Anita was somebody that during the pandemic, and I was struggling, said, "You are like a garden expert. Why aren't you like telling other people about this stuff? What are you doing?" And so she was part of the inspiration for me to actually take my love of gardening, my intuition when it comes to plants, and kind of start to monetize it, but share it more broadly. And And I am forever grateful because what Anita was able to do was help me kind of find my path forward when I was stuck in a rut for a while. And so one of
Oh,
those people that just totally helped me pivot, and it was amazing. So welcome to the show, Anita.
I just, I am just taken back by your words. I could get emotional. I'm just so happy to hear that. But at the same time, back then, it's something that I see that if we have a passion and if we have something that just speaks from our heart, why aren't we doing something with that? Why aren't we just making it happen? And so, because you were actually helping me, something that, you just happened to be doing at home, to see you go to where I just saw you going, it was so fulfilling for me just as a friend to be able to see
Yeah,
you get there. And it's your thing. It's like so your thing. It's all
it's
you.
it's my
So thanks
passion
for
for
having me.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, Sidetrack, I'm speaking for a corporate conference coming up this winter, and they're like, "What's your passion?" And I wanted to put down like gardening, but I was like, that is not appropriate for what they're looking for right now. I need a corporate passion, and it was a little bit of a
Right.
struggle to get there. Okay, so we are going to talk today on the show more about kind of your evolution and just your own like igniting, and it's just like expansion that we're seeing all over your own pages and your Facebook account, on your yard, your garden, and everything that's come there. And then we'll talk about, now that it's fall for Chicagoland, Zone 5, right? Like, what do we do with our garden? Do we let it just go to sleep? Do we yank everything out? Like, we'll talk through like, what do you do now? But before, so let's start a little bit for those that never listened to our past podcast that we were on, talking about kind of the tea garden. I think 3 years ago, maybe we took a trip to
Yeah.
Wisconsin and we planted a tea garden at Anita's,
Yeah, this was the
right?
first time. This was the first time I was actually trying to garden at all, and I called for your help because I was nervous. I think this was the time where I was gardening on my deck.
I think, yeah, you had the carts, like the planter
Yeah,
boxes on wheels. Yeah.
yeah.
Which,
I
for
just
those that have a patio or a lanai or only have container space, they're an awesome like resource for them to plant in.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I remember, and I wish I could have sent this picture to you, but there's this image, and maybe if it shows up for the next time I can share it with you somehow. But uh it was that the pandemic? It was 2021. And I wanted, yeah, because I know that it
Yeah.
was during the pandemic that I was feeling this. Everyone had the way they were feeling about what was going on, and the confusion and the depression and emotion, a lot of emotion, a lot of poor emotional intelligence. So, anyways, with what I was doing, I wanted to reach out to so many people to help them because I work with emotional health and wellness. And when you can't help everybody, you want to help everybody, you think you can help the world, right? But not everybody wants your help. Not everybody can get to your help. And so I was feeling pretty down about like, oh, what about all the people and all the children? And, I was having that moment. And so there was a part in around February, I think it was February, where I saw this image that just happened to show up. I don't think, I shouldn't say just happened. I always think it's a God thing, but this image showed up, and it was this beautiful image of this. I'm sure many people have maybe seen this if you're into gardening at all, but it looks like a barrel that is on its side, and then
Mhm.
all these flowers that are there that are illuminated by this
Like twinkle
adorable
lights or
watering can.
fairies. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's like this watering can that has lights coming out of it. I saw this, and I don't know what happened to me. I'm like, oh, so beautiful. I want to do that. And maybe I should get into crafting something, because I was trying to think of what can I do with my own self for me to feel happy. And that was such an illuminating, beautiful thing. But it was February. One thing led to another, and I ended up in Home Depot. Big credit there, because when I went in there for something else, I happened to walk into the very beginning. They show you all these little those little trays, the
Mhm.
pods that you can just put some seeds in there and then it'll grow. Okay. And I have had a bad history of gardening in terms of my parents and how they gardened. And it was always like, Anita, come and water the the garden. And I didn't want to, because whenever I did, there was mosquitoes and bugs. It was slimy, and the hose was all muddy. So I never had a good connotation, the good connection of gardening. I thought, ugh, ew, no, no, not doing it. And so now here I am in this place where I want to see growth. I want to see, literally, I wanted to see growth. And I didn't think of it in terms of planting, but then I said, why don't I give myself a 30-day challenge? And so I
Mhm.
did. I tend to do things that are, things that make me uncomfortable, or things that I think I can't do. Then sometimes I get in a mood and I think, what can I do? And I thought, 30-day challenge, let me at least try to plant a seed and see what it does. How, if it grows,
Yeah.
I can do it. Because I always thought I would kill
So how
plants.
did that first Jiffy Pod set turn out for you?
So it was a I called it a 36 pod tray or something. 36 matrix, that's what it was. The
Uh-huh.
36 matrix. That's what I called it. And what ended up happening, you discover your youth through trying things, or you
Mm-hmm.
discover how things are just adorable, or and I tend to be very transparent with my emotions. And so, because I was in that place of the pandemic and everything else, I followed the directions. You put the seeds in, you put the water, or you put the water in, you put the seeds in, you cover it, you like let it be. And when I did that, I mean, I knew I had like like my heart was racing, and I was supposed to leave it alone. And it was like a few days go in, it was like 4 or 5 days in, and I came around and I went, oh my gosh. And I acted as if, we just saw deer having babies or something. It was that big of a deal for me, that all these
Little
little
seedlings. Yeah.
tiny, tiny, tiny seeds, teeny tiny seeds. They look like a speck of dust. They're so small. And yet they all sprouted inside of this little chamber that I had. And I couldn't believe it. Like, they grew, and I suddenly had this connection. Like, that is incredible. So then I joined groups. What do I do next? You are the person who actually guided me in, try this group and go to this
Yeah.
group. This is what I do. This is what I look for. So I went into these groups, and I'd say, what do I do next? I was so proud of the 36 matrix. And then it was getting really tall. I felt so proud. And you would start hearing people say, not negative things. I think the nicest people on the planet are gardeners. That's all I'm going to say. All the groups I've ever been in, they are the nicest people. So they were saying to me, oh, you're doing really great. All you need to do now is, put some grow lights, because
Mm-hmm.
they're looking like they're reaching for the sun. And I learned these things. Now you put them into solo cups. They would give me
Yeah.
these tips to make this,
Step by step as they
yeah,
went. Yeah.
easier. And I got so motivated that I contacted you and I said, hey, can you help me? I didn't even know what was going to happen next. I had no idea what to do after the solo cups. But I was dreaming, and I started watching
Yeah.
things on YouTube, and I was dreaming, and I said, okay, I had a whole notebook full of notes and notes and notes, but going out with you and kind of having you anchor me through, let's do this, let's do this. And I thought about the tea garden.
Mm-hmm.
I said I wanted to do a tea garden. That's how it
And
all.
then that year you put in like a miniature raised bed out, and then deers ate everything for those
Oh,
who,
right. Oh,
right?
no, it was,
And then you're
yeah.
like, okay, it has to be enclosed. So if we jump to like year two,
I
how did your
recorded it.
expansion then go from these carts on your deck and deers eating everything in that little raised bed? What happened like
Well,
second
yeah,
year?
actually, it wasn't the deers. It was this one bunny who
Oh, it
showed
was a
up, and
rabbit. Okay.
he single-handedly, and I recorded it, ate all the sunflowers. You gave me sunflowers to help me, the seeds. And so I'm like, let me do this. And I put marigolds. You learn that you want to put certain plants to deter pests, and the smell of certain flowers just make people not want to, make
Hmm.
animals not to go to it. So the whole thing was covered, or bordered with the marigolds. And inside were all the sunflower seeds, and they were all growing beautifully, meaning the stems were coming through. Remember, I contacted you. I'm saying, this bunny is eating all my sunflower one at a time. And you could just see, like, all eating it all up.
He had his dinner all summer.
And then I learned about that, like, well, maybe you should have a fencing. And then it
Hmm.
was like, okay, maybe it needs to be covered. And sure enough, as this was all happening, as I'm so invested with all of these videos of gardening and gardening ideas, learning that there's something called a zone, that the way that the country is designed, the sun shows up certain times, and it's warmer here and it's cooler here. So we're all in a different zone. And sometimes I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. But this, learning what zone I was under helped me understand how different plants grow in different
Yeah.
locations. So you want to get plants that work for the zone that you're in. It was just mind blowing for me that if I just followed the directions and learned this is what you need to do, these are what the plants are like, this is how they behave. It was me being a mother, it made it in a sense more inspirational because I looked at everything like they're my children. What do you need? Okay, you need shade. Okay, well, we're gonna find you shade. What do you need? You need lots of sun, full sun. Okay, no problem. You're a part
Right.
shader. Okay. So that's how I started kind of looking at things. And then I started seeing how other people garden. I started driving, meaning I drove, but I started driving differently. Every
Huh.
time I had to go anywhere, it was not without looking at all the people's homes and their gardens. And I became I think my family would probably do a good impression of how I sounded driving. I would always kind of either slow down and go, "Oh my gosh, look at that. What is that?" Taking pictures, or if someone's outside, I'd be like, "I love your garden. What is that?"
And is your daughter like, I'm
Exhausted.
so embarrassed. Mom, don't talk to these
Yeah,
people.
mom. I heard that a lot. I went. I love. I'll give them a shout out. Culver's, your drive-throughs. Whoever designs your your garden is amazing. The most beautiful. I just keep taking pictures.
Yeah.
So I really got. I fell in love with what's in the earth. I fell in love that I had not even known that there's so much beauty that's not being um, seen by everybody, and
Hmm.
I can't say everybody will see it in the future, but I know that my eyes were immediately focused on life, and I know that this was a time in the pandemic where life, had a lot of challenges, so this was very good for my heart to heal through what I was seeing and hearing outside with human beings, and,
Hmm.
while I wanna see things getting better and better, how could I at least heal myself? And it was really through gardening.
I love it. So now you still have your like little raised beds on your patio. Then you have your Garden of Eden, which is not Eden like in the Bible, but like, how
It's
do
the
you
Garden of
spell
Eden, like we're
Eden?
eating. It's the
Yeah.
Garden of
Like
Eden. So,
Eaton
yeah, when you and
or
I first
something like that.
when you came by to my house and we were gonna do we did the tea garden, one of the things you said to me, "You're looking at my yard." I had this big patch of yard that had wild grass growing
Mhm.
and wild things growing, and I at first in the beginning, first couple of years, I liked it. I thought it was really cool, and then it's like, "Okay, well, what do I wanna do with all this?" I don't have a lot of children. I have my one kiddo who's now a teenager. Not a lot of running around is gonna be happening except with our dog, but I
Yeah.
thought I could do something, and I saw how you were just freely walking around saying, "Okay, this is what we could do. You could have beds here, here, here." So you could see it very easily and even design the idea, which was fantastic. And at the same time, because of my nerves, I'm like, "Well, let's not do it on the ground yet. Let's just do this on the deck and work with carts and see if
Mhm.
I even like it." I ended up falling in love with it. But then I thought, okay, I've been watching how animals, we live by a marsh and the woods. So we have all sorts of fun, interesting creatures that come by. And the ones I'm more concerned with are the ones that want the food. So we can create something for them to enjoy, but we really want to have an area where it can be protected. And so then we created, last year, we created the Garden of Eden, where it's just an enclosure that looks like a little house,
It's
with
like,
chicken wire
yeah.
everywhere.
To me, it looks like a greenhouse without the plastic sides or the glass,
That's right.
right? Because you're right. It's the chicken
I thought
wire,
it was a
it's
beautiful
air.
design by
Oh, it's gorgeous.
a gentleman I know that's in my neighborhood. He works with decks and things like that, and he worked with ours. And when I gave him the idea, he's like, I was really looking for the typical rectangular or square, just something that's maybe up to my waist. I
Hmm.
really didn't, I only saw those types of images, but he thought bigger for the sake of what we wanted to do and designs. And he said, what if we put a roof on it? It would kind of make it more like a home, like a house, like a
Hmm.
greenhouse, but it's not a greenhouse. It'll be an enclosure. Let's do it. Let's do it. And he did a wonderful job. I When I saw it done, I couldn't believe this was me. Like
Yeah.
this is me now. This is who I am today. I think my parents, they're both passed, but I think that they were both very much a part of it. So it was nice to see that happen. And then it's like, okay, Tiffany, what
What's
do I do
next?
with the raised garden?
Yeah.
What about the
Right?
soil? What about the timing? And it just
So
Domino
the other
factor.
thing I will share with listeners is Anita, over the last several years, has always been part of our spring garden retreat or spring garden workshop that I've hosted to kind of learn, like you just said, how do I mix the soil? What goes in the soil? How do I lay out plants? Is it okay to companion plant these or do I not plant these together? Like all those little intricate tips. Sometimes I will say even myself, but you need repetition. You'll hear it, you'll have your notebook, but then you hear it again and you're like, oh, that's right. I heard that once before. But it takes that repetition. And I think you always pick up new little tidbits, whether you're in like a garden group online or you're at a live workshop or you visit the greenhouse and talk to one of the employees. There's
Right.
always those things. Okay. So now the other thing I saw happen is your landscaping got like overhauled and converted and you had some
Yeah,
frost damage.
let me share something about that, because when I moved into our home, the yard in the front, we have a good amount of yard, and I never knew anything about those things. I just figure you have grass, you cut it. Okay, great. We got snow coming in, you plow it. Everything that was there in the first year of my home, we came in where it was just before spring. So as spring showed up, I learned so much in that year, but I did not take on gardening yet. But the idea is that flowers and plants show up almost like an orchestra. Some show up and then this time, and then they go back down, and other ones show up, and you get these movements of different flowers and floral arrangements in these areas. So what I saw in most of my garden, there were areas that were just green.
Mhm,
Everything was green. And it didn't mean that I was discriminating against the color green. It's just that I'd like to see color show up in these times as well. So it's not all green.
mhm,
And that's what happened, because when you watch the videos and you stay kind of consistent on like learning things, what you said earlier when it comes to the words, there's such a different language and vocabulary that helps you make sense of these plants. And you can, when you know their language, then you can help them grow. So I was on a path to saying, okay, this has to go, because it burned, it died in the winter, it didn't have a place to be there anymore. It would just be orange of death, and I
mhm.
can't look at death in the eyes all the time. It's so bad. So I take it out, and it's like, what do I put in its place? What will work? Oh, there's something called perennial, vocabulary word. Oh, and there's an annual, vocabulary word. And in order for me to move forward, it was like a necessity, because now I have holes in my yard.
Mhm.
Like, what do I put in there? So yeah, working with you, and um the passion I started having was, oh, that will never do. We can't do that. We have to do this. It has to be a perennial. It has to be anchored. I
It's
want to
gotta
see it
come
every
back
year.
every year, right? Or it's gotta
And I
reseed
started I
itself.
started
Yeah.
acting bougie about it. It's like, if we're gonna do this, let's do this right. Let's make this where, I knew for my mentality and my scheduling and my lifestyle, that if I had more perennials
Mhm,
that did its natural job, and as long as I provided the fertilizer and things that the food that they need, and they're planted in the place where they can grow with the sun, and there's enough water so they could drink, then we should be good. I didn't know when annuals versus perennials. Knowing that made a big difference in what I choose. Suddenly, it's like, why did they come back? Oh, it's because it's an annual. Well, it's an annual, and it's like, okay.
yeah. There's so much there, yeah. So, how are your flowers now for your property?
Oh goodness. So I'd say when I did my gardening first, and I discovered there's coleus. That's one of my
Mhm.
favorite, became one of my favorite plants, because they just want to live. You can keep them outside, and there's this term called overwintering. You can bring them in during the winter, bring them back out, and you can propagate, and they just keep growing. Is great. So seeing the flowers and knowing the direction that I wanted to take things, I knew I wanted to clean up the yard so it had flowers show up. And what flowers would show up? I had gone to Mackinac Island as a gift from my husband for his birthday, and or I think it was, no, you know what it was? It was a kind of like a wedding anniversary. It was September. That's what it was, because that was a time where we saw all the hydrangeas and flowers, hydrangeas and impatiens and roses. And after, if you go there, if you haven't gone there, you should totally go there in that time, or go during lilac season. They have it in the spring. But when I went at that time, everything was just hydrangeas. and they're
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, and there's many types. So when I made a decision, it was actually this year, maybe a little bit before this year, where I said, I'd like to turn my home, the yard, into more of a cottage style garden. And I wanted to see a lot of hydrangeas because I just wanted it to commemorate something that was part of my memory with my
Mm-hmm.
husband. He loves it, and so we actually planted more hydrangeas this year, and I probably will see myself planting more of those, and then adding other
Yeah.
plants that will fill up with different color too. But that's what we've done this year.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to shift topics. We're going to talk about fall planting and kind of some of those questions that you have. So,
Yes, yes.
kick us off. Where are you at with your where's the garden right now and what are you trying to do because there's still growing season?
So, that's the part that I was at, in all honesty. This is my first year in gardening in the ground, meaning in the raised beds in the Garden of Eden. I was very excited, and it's a good note for myself on when you want to plant certain types of foods. So we did brassicas, or I did
Mhm.
a cabbage, and I did all the root vegetables, and I did uh, tomatoes and cucumbers, and then some of the flowers that are edible flowers, or
Mhm.
cone flowers, and calendula. I got that from you, actually, at one of your workshops. So when all of this is grown, and it's very exciting. I had bok choy and pak choy and all these, the basil and all these different things that are growing, and it's all doing well. But now I had to remove them. So I had beets. So I had beets and radishes. Everything was removed, and everything turned, I mean, I would learn something about it. I thought, I should have probably planted them in the cooler parts
Oh
of the
yeah,
spring.
some of them are cooler plants. Yep.
Yeah, because I think that some of them, with the weather that we had, they bolted. Some of
Mhm.
the items bolted. So this is a live and learn thing. It's
Yep.
not a, luckily, I'll say this, when you start gardening, you should end up feeling so grateful for true farmers that have to supply an insane amount of food for people, community,
Mhm.
country. And it's not easy if you're doing small ones, but it's going to help you learn how you can work with everything. So me planting these things in at the time that I did, I put a note in it. So now everything's removed, and
Mhm.
we have enjoyed a lot of the things that we've grown, and it was
Yeah.
great to see it all happen. But now it's like everything's removed, and there's a lot of barren
And
areas
you're
in
like,
the
what do I
country.
add now, right? Okay.
Right. So
So
I don't
for
know what to do for
those
August.
that are listening, I do want you to know Chicago has 3 growing seasons. And even myself growing up as a young person and my grandma gardening and me learning all about gardening, I really only thought there was one growing season. Like you put it in, it grows
Yes,
and you're done.
that's what I
And
thought.
that is not right. We have 3 growing seasons. So the very first growing season is in that early spring. And I actually normally have seeds in the ground in March. And those are what you would call cold crops. So back to what you were saying, Anita, it's the beets, it's the lettuce, it's cabbages, sweet peas or snack peas, right? Or like snap peas. Um, those are like things that go in the ground when it's cold. Your bok choys, all of those green things, radishes. Radishes really only grow when it's cold. So you have this cool season from like March to May, and most of that stuff is ready to harvest in May. If you get it in March, you've got your good 90 days, and you're pulling beets out, you're pulling radishes, you're picking lettuce. Some people will do another planting in April to try to stretch the cool season into June. So you'll have more spinach and greens and beets and mustard greens and kale kind of that they'll
Do
put
these get
in
planted into the ground, or do you
into a
sprout
raised
them in
bed.
the, oh, so
Because you got to have tillable soil. And now that you have raised beds, you can plant them in the raised beds. It also, because the raised bed is off the ground, the raised bed is not going to be frozen as long as the traditional ground. It will defrost sooner. And if it's going to frost, everything I just named is frost tolerant. Like the frost won't kill that stuff because it's good to go. You could even
so there
if
is
you
no need to sprout them in the little greenhouse.
those, no, you can directly just sow them in March. Now, if you, which I do this normally once, I have one 4x8 that in we have a like a greenhouse over year round. I opened it up in the summer, but I normally plant that in February so that I actually have stuff in April. But so you would plant though in March, cold crops, then you'd be able to harvest those in May, do another planting in April if you have space, so you can harvest those in June. Then when you get to like that traditional, what everybody thinks of as like the Chicago growing season where you're putting in at Mother's Day, then you're planting your bush beans, your green beans, your cucumbers, your tomato plants, all of that stuff that can't necessarily tolerate frost, right? And that's like your summer growing. When you get to June, and for those of you on the call or on the podcast, if you're like, oh my goodness, I should have had a piece of paper and writing this stuff down, like pause it, rewind, and go get your notebook so you can make notes. But when you get to June, you can put in more squash. You can put in pumpkins so that they'll be ready to harvest in October. And you can put in some of those vinier plants that you want to pull out in the fall, right? And I think about pumpkins and squash and, because that's
Zucchini?
a traditional, yeah, zucchinis, you could add additional, like you could put zucchinis in May and then you could add more in June. So you get like 2 seasons there. So now we're looking at, it's August, right? Here in Chicago, tomatoes are all red. Most of our cucumbers are like, we've pulled them out. I fed my cucumber friends to the chicken about a week ago. Like I was like, you guys are done growing. You're turning brown. Get out of here. The peas, if you've had peas, they're probably pulled those out because they're done. They've bolted. The lettuce is all bolted. But now that we're in August, we're starting to cool down. Okay. So especially like late August into September, we're starting to cool down, but it's not going to necessarily snow until late October and November. So we have 3 more months. So you have a fall growing season where you're going to put back in cool crops. So you're going to be able to replant your lettuces in September, your green beans or your bush beans. You can replant peas. You can even put in more radishes. So similar to that stuff that you would plant in the spring, you plant again in the fall.
And I can just put the seeds in
Put
and
it
not do.
all in the ground right now. Yep. Back in the raised beds. And then
I'm
you'll be
doing
able to
that.
grow. The thing to keep in mind is when you're looking at your seed packets, um, some of them will tell you they need 65 days or they need 95 days or 160 days, right, to reach full harvest. Just make sure you get stuff that's like 65 to 90 days and you're good. Yeah. So if you've got seeds left over from spring, now is the time, if you're listening, to get them in the ground. I would even say this week is most perfect for doing that because the new moon is Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. So starting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is optimal if you're using the moon cycles to garden to get your seeds in,
What timing?
right?
Seriously.
Perfect timing.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's incredible that we
yeah.
talked when we did, and now we're doing this right now. And this is fantastic. I love that.
So with that, okay, so we've covered a lot. I have one question for you as the guest that I want to get to before we kind of
Sure.
run out of time because I don't want the podcast to be like, whoo, super long. Because people stop listening. So, how are you cultivating guts in your life now?
How am I cultivating? Well, I'll say that being able to grow food has been, you know, knowing the taste and the flavor. It makes me look for organic food. It makes me look for farmers and farmers markets, and how do they care about their food? Makes me think about how I clean my food. In the past, I didn't put a lot of effort into, like, if you get a cucumber, it's okay, a little quick wash and you're done. But if you know where you're getting your fruits and vegetables, I think that I've just gotten cleaner
Mhm.
in my selections, to put importance into my nutrition more than I ever did. I think I probably speak for a lot of people where we followed a way that was told to us growing up, and television is to tell a vision. So they're giving us a vision and we're just following along. And so as we do that and we start recognizing that, maybe if we ate a little bit better, start getting off that ramp and start making more personal decisions. There are decisions, our ownership of our health, for us to be able to choose better. We have an opportunity to look at the ingredients and see what's in there. And it makes me feel like, I think it's really changed a lot in my life. to truly cultivate my own guts by what I'm doing. The fact that I've been growing things, planting things, getting really one with the earth, and I happen to be a Taurus, if anyone cares about signs. So me being a bull, me being an earth creature, it just makes so much sense. And it's so shocking to me. I was a girl that's like, I ain't going anywhere near plants, gardens. I'm going to kill it all. I have a black thumb.
Now it's
All
an
this talk is
obsession.
baloney. What it was is we had to, you have to discover ourselves. And so that's what I've
Yeah,
done. And in doing so, I can at least say that, it's actually helped me to shed some excess pounds that I didn't need to have, but that came along the way of COVID. It's helping me to view my eating abilities. Like, what do I want to really spend my time with? This actually fills me up more than this. And all those wonderful things that happen when you start paying attention to the gardens and you pay attention to the food and the fruits that come from it. Big difference in the way I'm cooking too. So
that's awesome.
that's a bit of
That's
everything I do.
awesome. Oh my
Thank you so
gosh.
much for your guidance and
Yeah,
your natural talent.
you are so welcome. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Perfect.
And how can people find you if they want to reach out for emotional intelligence coaching and your services?
Well, thank you. The way that they can reach me really is I have an email address. They can reach out to me that way, which is Anita at Interscope, which is INNERSCOPE 365 at gmail.com. That's my email. You can send it. Is that right? No, Anita at interscope365.com. That's what I wanted to say. If you want to do something when it comes to social media, you can find me on Facebook a lot easier. Anita Myers. You just find me there. And I've got a Facebook group that's free for you to join in and kind of lounge with me in the emotional health and wellness arena. It's called the Emotional Wellness Lounge. So if you can come on there and join me, I would love to see you. I'd love to spend time with you. And we can get a little bit more emotional with our plants and veggies in our area, our gardens. It matters.
So true. And each plant has its own essence, and especially flowers, and they have their own emotional cadence. And there's so much there. So much. It's so
That's
fun.
like a whole other show.
Topic.
Yeah.
Sure. So for those of you that have tuned in, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Share with me what your favorite part was and share with me what you're going to be planting this fall. If you are like, I don't even know where to get started, remember, I am a certified garden coach and I would love to do a consultation with you. You can sign up for a consultation on our website, www.cultivatingguts.com. Now is actually the perfect time to design your new raised bed garden and start getting it ready so you can plant in the spring. It is a beautiful time to start the planning process and the design. You can ask me any questions. I'm here for you, and I'm excited to see all of your benefits from growing your own food and flowers. Satnam, love you guys. So if you love this episode, share it with your friends. Send it to anyone who may love this inspiration or need information that we shared today in the podcast. To get our newest book, The Ultimate Greenwich Garden Planner, you can pick it up at Amazon or you can pick it up on our website, www.cultivatingguts.com, or even our Etsy store, which is below in the show notes. Also, if you want to get our newest free ebook, the Biodynamic Gardening Guide, you can pick that up for absolutely free on our website. You'll see right at the top of the page where you can click to get that download, and that is over at www.cultivatingguts.com. I will remind you the fall Little Witch's Moon Garden Club bundle is now open for registration. Space is limited to the first 15 kids, and our brand new moon women's circle that's meeting every month around the new moon, setting manifestations out using it's bundled energy. It's a group, it's a container. That's what it is. It's a container of energy that allows you to manifest faster, manifest with joint energies, and it's so magical. We have space open for 4 more women for our circle. Our circle is kept intimate, and you can sign up as well for those over on our website. I am excited to get you all of those details. And if you have absolutely any questions and you're ready to get gardening but don't know where to start, again, sign up for a consultation. I would love to meet with you. I do 2 consultations every month. So you could be one of the two people in September. You could be one of the two people in October, but get on my calendar now for a garden coaching consultation. We spend an hour together talking about where you're stuck, how to get you over that, and then what are the next steps to get your raised bed biodynamic gardening up and running for the next season or even the current season, depending on when we meet, to get all that stuff that you need to get you going and growing your own food and helping your own gut. You'll find all of that information over at cultivatingguts.com.